Hillary, can I ask you a question on camera?
Sorry?
Can I ask you a question on camera?
Yeah, go for it.
When you see a rush, is your initial response, uh-oh, or is it, oh yeah? I don't know how to counterbalance that without sounding like the Kool-Aid guy, but like, are you like excited?
I mean, it's like a challenge in efficiency, so I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I like to like do everything in the quickest way possible to like get it all out. So I'm not bothered.
I totally relate.
I mean, it's like definitely like stressful if you realize like, oh, I don't have my shot ready or something, like the filter's gone and I need to make some more.
Yeah.
Or the moment someone adds a waffle to it and you're like, oh, so. But I mean, I'm the bomb.
You are the bomb. Bomb.com. Good morning. It's Wednesday, and I'm feeling pretty good. Apparently it's a motorcycle convention behind the camera. It's hard not to feel good when you get a little bit of puppy time in the morning. How can you not? Today I thought I'd talk a little bit about why I stopped doing the 80 and 8, because I think it was clear to some and not to others, so I'll clear that up and let you know it is going to come back. Don't you worry. And thanks to everybody who's excited for it to come back. I look forward to doing it. Mostly. We'll talk about that. I'm about as far away from home as I'm going to be on this run now. Well, technically a little bit closer than I was earlier. So I should probably start running home. Back when I worked at Arby's in high school, I don't know if you knew that, but when I worked at Arby's, I kind of had a mentality, especially when I finally earned the right to work on the line, like making the food. It's one of those things where you weren't allowed to do that until you've been there long enough. And it's funny thinking about that, like you had to work your way up to that. And when I finally made it back there, like there's something I loved about it. The efficiency of running the drive-through or making sandwiches, like being like, yeah, bring it on. Like I can do this, I can be fast, bam, bam, bam. I'm gonna get it out there faster than you can serve it. Had a real like go-getter attitude. That also sometimes shifted to being like, where did all these people come from? Why are they here now? It's 3:15 in the afternoon. This is not a mealtime. Why are people ordering sandwiches and fries right now? What is happening? There's like 20 people in the drive-thru. All of this. Where did this come from? There was nobody here 20 minutes ago. And I was kind of thinking about that today. It's not always the fault of the work. It's probably in here, right? Like there's circumstances and things that make it harder to like want to make a whole bunch of sandwiches. Or maybe you're just misfiring and you're not putting the fries in at the right time and they're not coming out at the right time. And all of a sudden there's this cascade effect of everything falling behind and you're just less satisfied with your work because you're not doing as good of a job. And that kind of sums up half of the reason that I stopped doing the 80 and 8 when I did. And we can dig into that a little bit more. The other half, I mean, it's because like we went into lockdown and then, you know, I want to be sure that I can actually explore and share the city, not just wander around and look at the outside of buildings. I think you get it. idea what this new barrier is for. I mean, I didn't know what the old barrier was for, but I guess they're taking advantage of empty Paris to do some, you know, renovations. I have no idea, but this is a really, really big wooden structure they're building. Whoa. That was a good run. I really don't know what's going on with that barrier. They put a barrier up a long time ago right on the edge, which I didn't know if that was for a renovation or if they were worried that people were climbing up on it or something. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I hope they don't ruin the view forever, but they're definitely ruining the view for now. Speaking of ruining views, on the Arby's side of the analogy, what I kind of came to with the 80 and 8 in particular, but just in general over this last year, was trying to find the right balance. If you've been along for the ride for the last year, 2 years, whatever, you've seen me hit some significant burnout, and you've probably heard about YouTuber burnout ad nauseum at this point, just because a lot of YouTubers went through it and shared their experiences. I don't want that to ever happen again, for one, but I also really just needed to get through it. Like, I didn't want to give up YouTube either. I really enjoy this. I love making these videos, but I'd forgotten that. And that's something that I had a hard time sharing in the midst of it because, you know, I don't want to like not like doing it. It's a great it's so much fun. But also, yeah, I just kind of lost some of the pizzazz, some of the magic to it, and was working on getting that back. And I feel like I've got that back finally at long last. Like recently I've been having more fun again, a lot of fun. And the magic, the pizzazz is back. Or at least it's coming back. And I want to capitalize on that, but I also want to make sure to protect that so that I can keep making videos and having fun making videos for you for a long time. Because if I'm not having fun making them, they're just not going to be as good as if I'm having a grand old time. I think you see that. And that's also one of the reasons why Patreon has been so important. I'm going to throw that in there right now because I want to thank my patron producer of the day, of course. So thanks to Tracie Root, today's patron producer, for putting us together. But it's one of those things that Jeff says all the time, and a number of you have mentioned over time, that the additional freedom that came from increased Patreon support is what made spending so much more time and energy on my vlog possible. So if you see the growth of my vlog over time, and you've been a patron along that period, for any period of time during that, you've been a part of that. You've been a part of the growth and the development of my channel. The thing that was happening went against that at the same time was steadily burning out as I just ground myself to a stump. A very handsome stump, but you know, still stump nonetheless. That's one of the things I'm trying to do is I'm trying to build myself up more verbally than I tend to be too self-deprecating. So I'm gonna work on not being a jerk about it, but being like, I'm okay. So that is what I've been working on overcoming through, you know, therapy, which has been very helpful this year. Highly recommended to anybody and everybody. Doesn't matter if you feel like you're healthy or not, it can be helpful. But also in trying to find the right rhythm. How many videos do I make? When do I make them? When do I take breaks? When do I allow myself to take breaks? The challenge, of course, of being your own boss and having to show up to work or nothing gets done is that you have a really hard time letting yourself take time off. If I'm not here, the sandwiches don't get made, as it were. Whereas at Arby's, this is sounding like an ad all of a sudden, but whereas at Arby's, the sandwiches are getting made all the time no matter what. And so the 80 and 8 for me, to tie that all back into the obvious point of this, is that those videos are extra hard. Like they're really fun. The exploring part is really, really fun. For some reason, the edits are extra difficult with those because possibly they don't follow a predictable structure in some ways. And I found myself really just like, dying a little bit. Now, thankfully, most of you are very forgiving of the irregularities that come with that. And you know, I had to give up the pace. The 80 and 8, the goal was to do all 80 quarters in 8 months. With lockdown, that was obviously impossible. And also, it was killing me a little bit, more than a little bit, honestly. It was kind of driving me back towards that sense of burnout. So taking the foot off the gas, putting the foot on the brakes, ultimately, really was very helpful. And I want to come back to it because it's such a fun way to explore the city. It is such a fun way to find things that I've never seen before or go places that I've always wanted to go, but just never had the chance or took the time. It's really cool. And so that's the other reason that I'm not jumping right back into it, is because now that I actually am feeling excited about doing it again, going out, exploring, introducing you to new people and places, is that I want to make sure that I actually can go to those places that I stumble across and go, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to go in here. Now's my chance. The classic example that comes to mind, but the first example that comes to mind of this is when I was in the 16th and I went into the Museum of Architecture. I'd always wanted to go into that museum. We've all been to Trocadero, the square right there, a million times. The square I was just in with the view of the Eiffel Tower. It's probably the most famous view of the Eiffel Tower, the most used and photographed, easiest to access. You know, it's fantastic. The two museums on either side of it, I've never been into before. And so when we're wandering around and I'm thinking like, well, where do I go in this neighborhood? There's not a lot to do. Oh, museums. Oh, that museum. I've never been inside. Let's go inside. That was really cool. And now the museums are closed, restaurants are closed, all those things. Like, I would like to be able to actually explore these places. I can't do it as fully as possible. I think that's the other thing that's really cool about the series, but also a little bit intimidating is you're like, I can never actually explore all of this, no matter how hard I try, and I will try. And so to be limited to just walking on the streets and like looking outside and being like, well, that looks like a nice museum, it just doesn't seem as robust and as fun, and it's not the real spirit of the series of videos that I wanted to make. And so that's why I took a break. I'm not really quitting, but I did quit for a while. I put the pause on. And there's one other thing that I've had to think through about all of this that I'll share in a minute, but I need to eat some lunch and go to an appointment. So we'll talk about it in a more Parisian location than the chateau. It doesn't get much more Parisian than this, does it? My chateau. Welcome to my chateau. The ultimate in Parisian living. I'm sorry for that. That was way too much. Let's get out of here. Just got done with therapy, which was great. Which brings me to my last two things that I was going to talk about with this, which are kind of connected in that ultimately, like the 20 and 20, which was the precursor to the 80 and 8, was also done largely to promote my guide to the city. You know, just to show you, hey, I know the city. I got lots of recommendations. Go for it, right? So it was a promotional tool in that sense to help more people connect with even better information that I had to offer, which is phenomenal. And the 80 and 8, ultimately, you know, you wanted to serve a similar purpose, the same purpose. And because, you know, nobody can come to Paris right now, the guide, not necessarily the biggest thing. So I thought, well, you know, I can promote Patreon a little bit, figure something out. But, you know, it fits really well with my guide. So then the other side of that is that the 80 and 8, because it's an exploration of the city on a more granular level, means that I'm not focused just on touristy things. I am actually focused on also like just getting to know the city and seeing what's around, which is great. And again, I love it. But it leads to tricky situations where, like, the last video that I have to release from the first 20 is in the 19th in an area called Chapelle, which is one of the more dangerous neighborhoods in the city. It's like right at the top of the list. And that feels a little bit complicated to me. And I've been thinking about it a lot. I also wanted to stop by Marks and Spencer's, but like the rumors are true. There's a little bit of a shortage on some of these things. Hopefully they've still got cheesy poofs, because their cheesy poofs are about as good as they get for the Parisian offering that I've found so far, at least. Oh no. Cheesy poofs. Yes. Oh, it's a 6-pack of tiny packs of cheesy poofs. Nah. Better than no cheesy poofs. I mean, ultimately, what I'm thinking about is not wanting to mischaracterize any neighborhoods. Like, I think honesty is key. And at the end of the day, that's what's most important, right? I actually want to explore and share these places, but it does feel like, especially when you go into areas that are maybe a little bit less safe, or at least feel less safe, I also don't want to overhype that. Like, I don't want to make it seem like places are more dangerous than they are. I don't want to, I guess hype that up is the term that comes to mind. Because one of the things that I was learning, like one of the themes of all of this has been that at least that those places that I thought might be kind of boring or not have a lot to offer, I actually had a lot of really interesting things going on. Like every place I went to, I found some cool stuff that I really, really enjoyed finding. So I catch myself kind of dismissing certain neighborhoods, like the 14th, for example, for not having a lot going on, being kind of boring, things like that, which aren't necessarily untrue, but also not necessarily fair. And I want to go into every circumstance, every quarter, every experience with an open mind and, you know, looking to make the most out of it. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking about in terms of both how I approach those, and especially how I approach neighborhoods that fall into different demographics that might, you know, draw some unfair conclusions from other outside sources, or that, you know, if I go into a situation and it is genuinely unsafe or feels unsafe, that I'm not using that for views, if you know what I mean. Like, I don't want to, I was kind of surprised. You'll see in the video on the 19th, and I'll share it soon. I need to edit it. But you'll see, like, there was a lot of just poverty on the streets. Like, there were some kind of shocking scenes that I decided not to film as much as anything. But it really left me thinking, like, okay, how do I properly represent and present this information so that it's entertaining and educational, but also not exploitative? And that's kind of that's the tricky part. So that's also been a hesitation on continuing. Just wanted to make sure I think that through and hopefully do a good job of it. And, you know, at the end of the day, I can only do so good of a job of it. I'm not going to be perfect, but, you know, I want to be thoughtful about it at least. Anywho, that's it for today. I'm not really worried about my bike getting stolen because I was able to lock the rear wheel, but I am concerned that my snacks are going to get stolen because, I mean, those are precious. Those are like the last cheesy poofs in town. I don't want those going anywhere. Anyways, thanks for watching. Hit the like button. I haven't been asking because I've been on the fence about that one too, but I should ask, why not? If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, that'd be great. And I'll see you again tomorrow morning for, you know, some bright and early, delicious, Parisian, silly madness. And maybe one of these days, maybe tomorrow even, I'll actually edit that video and get it up here soon. So I'll release it first for patrons and then the rest of you shortly after. See you tomorrow for that.